Section 24 of Revelations of a Wife. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Reading by Mary Rohde. Revelations of a Wife by Adele Garrison. Chapter 24. A Summer of Happiness That Ends in Fear. I do not believe I shall ever know greater happiness than was mine in the weeks following Grace Draper's first visit to our Marvin home. Many times I looked back to that night when I had lain sobbing on my bed, fighting the demon of jealousy, and gasped in amazement at my own folly. That evening had ended in Dicky's arms on our moonlight veranda, and ever since he had been the royal lover of my honeymoon days, which had preceded our first quarrel. I wondered vaguely sometimes if he had guessed the wild grief and jealousy which had consumed me on that night, but if he had any inkling of it, he made no sign. Grace Draper had gone out of our lives temporarily. If I had needed reassurance as to Dicky's real feelings for her, the manner in which he told me the news of her going would have given it to me. "Blast the luck," he growled one evening, after reading a manuscript which he had been commissioned to illustrate. "Here's something I'll need Draper for, and she's 200 miles away. I ought to have known better than to let her go." The tone and words were exactly what he would have used if the girl had been a man or a boy in his employ. Even in my surprise at his news, I recognized this, and my heart leapt exultantly. I was careful, however, to keep my voice nonchalant. "Why, has Miss Draper gone away?" I asked. "Oh, that's so. I didn't tell you," he returned carelessly, looking up from the manuscript. "Yes, she went away 2 days ago. She has a grandmother, or aunt, or old party of some kind down in Pennsylvania who is sick and has sent for her. Guess the old girl has scads of coin tucked away somewhere, and Draper thinks she'd better be around when the aged relative passes in her checks. Bet a cookie she won't die at that, but if she's going to, I wish she'd hurry up about it. I need Draper badly, and she won't be back until the old girl either croaks or gets better." Under other circumstances, the callousness of this speech, the coarseness of some of the expressions, the calling of Miss Draper by her surname, would have grated upon me. But I was too rejoiced both at the girl's departure and the matter-of-fact way in which Dicky took it to be captious about the language in which he couched the news of her going. "Grace Draper is gone, is gone." The words set themselves to a little tune which lilted in my brain. I felt as if the only obstacle to my enjoyment of our summer in the country had been removed. How I did revel in the long, beautiful summer days. Dicky appeared to have a great deal of leisure, in contrast to the days crowded with work which had been his earlier in the spring. "Each year I work like the devil in the spring so as to have the summer, June especially, comparatively free," he exclaimed one day when I commented on the fact that he had been to his studio but twice during the week. I had dreamt in my girlhood of vacations like the one I was enjoying, but the dream had never been fulfilled before. Dicky had fixed up a tennis court on the grassy stretch of lawn at the left of the house, and we played every day. 2 horses from the livery were brought around 2 mornings each week, and after a few trials I was able to take comparatively long rides with Dicky through the exquisite country surrounding Marvin. Our motor boat trips were frequent also, although Dicky found that it was more convenient to rent one when he wished it, than to enter into any ownership arrangement with anyone else. Automobile trips in which his mother joined us, long rambles through the woods and meadows which we took alone, little dinners at the numberless shore resorts, all these made a whirl of enjoyment for me unlike anything I had ever known. I was careful to cater to my mother in law's wishes in every way I could. Either because of my attentions or of the beautiful summer days, she was much softened in manner, so that there was no unpleasantness anywhere. "This is the bulliest vacation I ever spent," Dicky said one evening, after a long tramp through the woods. It was one of the frequent chilly evenings of a Long Island summer, when a fire is most acceptable. Katie had built a glorious fire of dry wood in the living room fireplace, and after dinner we stretched out lazily before it, Mother Graham and I in armchairs, Dicky on a rug with cushions bestowed comfortably around him. "I am naturally very glad to hear that," I said demurely, and Dicky laughed aloud. "That's right. Take all the credit to yourself," he said teasingly. Then, as he saw a shadow on my face, for I never have learned to take his banter lightly, he added in a tone meant for my ear alone, "But you are the real reason why it's so bully, old top." The very next day Dicky and I went for a long walk. We had nearly reached the harbor when I saw Dicky start suddenly, gaze fixedly at some one across the road, and then lift his hat in a formal, unsmiling greeting. My eyes followed his and met the cool, half quizzical ones of Grace Draper. She was accompanied by a tall, very good looking youth, who was bending toward her so assiduously that he did not see us at all. "Why, I didn't know Miss Draper had returned," I said, wondering why Dicky had kept the knowledge from me. "I didn't know it myself," Dicky answered, frowning. "Queer she wouldn't call me up. Wonder who that jackanapes with her is, anyway." Dicky was moody all the rest of the trip. I know that he has the most easily wounded feelings of anyone in the world, and naturally he resented the fact that the beautiful model whom he had befriended, and who was his secretary and studio assistant, had returned from her trip without letting him know she was at home. If I only could be sure that pique at an employee's failure to report to him was at the bottom of his sulkiness. But the memory of the good looking youth who hung over the girl so assiduously was before my eyes. I feared that the reason for Dicky's moody displeasure was the presence of the unknown admirer of his beautiful model. Of course, all pleasure in the day's outing was gone for me also, and we were a silent pair as we wandered in and out through the sandy beaches. Dicky conscientiously, but perfunctorily, pointed out to me all the things which he thought I would find interesting, and in which, under any other circumstances, I should have reveled. In my resolution to be as chummy with Dicky as possible, I determined to put down my own feelings towards Grace Draper. But it was an effort for me to say what I wished to Dicky. We had chatted about many things, and were nearly home when I said timidly: "Dicky, now that Miss Draper is back, don't you think you and I ought to call on her and her sister and have them over to dinner?" Dicky frowned impatiently. "For heaven's sake, don't monkey with that old cat, Mrs. Gorman. She is making trouble enough as it is." He bit his lip the next instant, as if he wished the words unsaid, and, for a wonder, I was wise enough not to question him as to the meaning of the little speech. But into my heart crept my own particular little suspicious devil. Always too ready to come is this small familiar demon of mine, and once there he stayed, continually whispering ugly doubts and queries concerning the "trouble" that Mrs. Gorman was making over her sister's intimate studio association with my husband. My constant brooding affected my spirits. I found myself growing irritable. The next day, after Dicky and I had seen Miss Draper and her attendant cavalier on the road to Marvin Harbor, Dicky made a casual reference at the table to the fact that she had returned to the studio and her work as his secretary and model. She said she called up the studio when she got in, and again yesterday